back again from the land of prairies, but we're going to talk right now about our meadow at Confluence Park. And what a meadow is, and what I've learned from a lot of other folks what a meadow is. But basically, in the East Coast here in Virginia, you know, everything wants to be a woodland, basically. And so a meadow is simply a temporary stopping point before the landscape wants to turn into a woodland. So that requires intervention, and that requires care to keep that meadow from turning woody. So there are ways to do that, such as gleaning off all the growth, cutting it down. We use, what do we use? Not machetes, but scythes. So a crew will come down and scythe down the meadow and pull off the growth so it doesn't smother the meadow. And then we put that in the woodland for some mulch. And that's one of the things that happens in Confluence Park. We work hard that no material ever leaves that park, that it's a continual recycle of whatever material that comes out of a task or treatment we do. We use it elsewhere in the park to help build the soil and build, you know, some cooling aspects. And that lovely meadow mulch is a terrific thing in the woodland. But one of the things about a meadow, that if you're going to have one, is to you know, encourage yourself to have patience, because that's what it takes to have a meadow. Generally, when you first put in a meadow, however you go about it, I think of its first year as, you know, an infant, and it requires that type of attention an infant takes. Maybe the next year or so, then it's an adolescent, and you see things just popping up in random ways. It's not a very manicured look, but it's an exciting time, what's happening in there. And then the third year, generally it becomes, you start to see the actual character of the meadow. And we got to see that in the meadow. However, last year we had a serious infestation, which, you know, I'm sure was in the meadow for a period of time and we did not catch it. But that was mugwort and some Johnsongrass and some beefsteak plant. And these things just took off. So we're now in the situation of trying to control that, to suppress that. And the meadow now has gone back to maybe its adolescent look. It's very, you know, it's poking out all over the place in different ways. We still have some great plants in there, but we're going to make a transition now into more aggressive grasses, which really we need a better mix of that anyways. So Indian grass and some other grasses now are going to really be planted in mass there to try and help overcome this problem as we keep those forbs, those invasive forbs down. So a meadow is a wonderful opportunity for all sorts of habitat, habitat for all sorts of species. However, it's a great opportunity for all the pressures that are around a meadow. You know, all the pressures of the exotic plants that are put in our gardens that find their way through seed or wind into the meadow. It's like a sink for that sort of thing. So you really have to pay attention to what's happening and realize that a meadow is a process always. It's not a stable climax, if you want to call it a climax, site. It never will be in Northern Virginia. And it requires a regimen of either fire or cutting, that type of thing, to keep it out of the woody section, and of course to manage the invasives that the rest of the world around the meadow is putting pressure on it. So that's what we're seeing. Even though it may be disappointing this year, I mean, I think the meadow was very still productive for pollinators. Certainly in the evening, the bats are enjoying all the insects that are posted there now. Aesthetically, it's a little disappointing. On the other hand, maybe we can look at it as a learning experience. This is why it's important to keep, you know, a management plan going, and that things happen in nature, and they're good lessons. You know, not everything's perfect in nature, and we need, from my point of view, we just need to change our aesthetic expectations and think about it in terms of life systems, a living landscape versus a pretty picture. And that's a challenge for all of us. But it's been really terrific here at the park where we have opportunities to see that. And I think for children, for our younger generations, you know, for them to understand that this is a dynamic system and what does that mean and how does that happen. So it's been a terrific opportunity to work on that there, and we'll see what happens next year.
Just real quick, I had a question about, so the mugwort, you removed it, just cutting it down.
We sort of did a, I don't want to say an experiment, but just a test. So we cut some down, we pulled some out, and there was some treatment with an aquatic herbicide, and that's an herbicide that's been regulated and approved around water systems. And even though we don't have standing water there, it's certainly what we'd prefer to do in an area like that. So we just brushed it on the leaves to see what would happen. Now, I haven't had a big experience with mugwort before, but all of the literature that I read, there's no one way to absolutely eradicate it that I can find. So there's a lot of conflicting information, but also encouraging information. So we're going to see what happens. So we have sections that we tried each of those, you know, on, and then NVPS, Northern Virginia Property Services, they'll just keep an eye on it, and that's one of the things they do every month. They go out and check it and see what's happening. Right now, it looks like it's gone, but you know, it's tenacious. These exotic invasives, they don't have what our evolved natural flora and fauna have, and that is checks and balances. They don't have that here. They came from another place where they evolved with their natural check and balances, so they don't overrun, you know, right? They're in a system that there are a lot of checks and balances, there's competition. Well, that's not so true with the exotic invasives when they leave their continent of evolution. And that's what we see here, and that's what's happening here. There aren't many insects that are going to come and check it. There aren't that many diseases that are coming in and check it. The climate, they might seed earlier or leaf out earlier than our natives, so they have a, you know, competitive edge. There are all sorts of things that happen when exotics are introduced, and of course we're all learning that now, right? We know that now. And again, I'll go back to the aesthetic issue of it. You know, exotics can often give us a real punch aesthetically, but in the stewardship world, they really don't have much of a place. So that's a challenge we're working on. So hopefully next year we're going to see the meadow bounce back on another level, and see what lessons we learned then.
One other question, the Indian grass will be plugs that are, and that would be in the spring or the fall. Will you do it this fall?
We're going to do some this fall because it's been so wet. So that's a good thing. We'll do some plugs. We'll probably do some larger plants from Ursanga. I hope last year we did a big planting of plants, but grasses generally take like 2 years before you really see them. So they're in there, but I think it's, considering this, I think we better just really push that even further towards these aggressive grasses. Or I don't want to say aggressive, they're assertive, you know, they're going to outcompete a lot of stuff. And we want that. And that's just more seeds for the birds and